What's up, everybody? It's George Gabriel, and this is 5 ways your gain structure might be killing your mix. So in this video, we're going to talk about your gain structure and how an improper gain structure can mess up your whole mix. And I'll be discussing the top 5 things that might be killing your mix because of improper gain structure. So let's take a look. So number 1, you're killing your mix because your gain structure might be too low. Let's check this out. So when your gain structure is too low, what happens in the mix phase is you have to turn up your volume so you can hear the instruments that you've recorded. Maybe it's a guitar, maybe it's a bass, maybe it's a vocal. But mic'd instruments in particular are problematic when you have too low of a gain structure, because when you're mixing, you have to bring that up. And so whatever noise floor you have in the room that you're recording, the noise floor will come up with you. Microphones are the #1 culprit in this. So I'm in Logic here, and I'm going to just dial up a microphone. You can see that the microphone I'm using to record this video is actually the one that's in Logic as well. If you look at channel 2 and the input, right now it's peaking at -10.7. But let's say you're recording a vocal and it's really low. And what happens is if you have anything in the room, like I have a drive in this room that is a RAID drive and it's got a fan. So that becomes a problem anytime I record anything that is sensitive, like guitars or anything like that that are acoustic. It could be the TV in the next room. It could be landscapers outside. It could be air conditioning. But when you're using a mic, if your gain structure is too low, when you turn it up to mix, you're going to hear all that stuff. Let me illustrate. All right, so I'm going to move back when I make this recording because I want to illustrate the background noise that has to be raised when I have too low of a gain level. So here we go. Hey, I'm George and this is my recording. I can't even see it on the track. Okay, so there it is. And if I double click on this, wow, that is super low gain structure here. So if I want to have any fighting chance to hear this, so I'm going to have to change the gain, and I can use my fader, but I only have 6 dB of gain here. So I'm going to use this little gain option here, and let me just goose up the gain here. And look what it does to the audio file. It makes it a little boxy looking, but really pay attention to what you hear as far as background noise. Hey, I'm George, and this is my recording. I can't even see it on the track. Now, you heard that. That's my drive making all that noise. But if you have proper gain structure, let me show you how that changes. Let me delete this and try it again, and let's get on the mic. Now to look at what our gain structure is, our gain structure wants to be about -3 to -6. That's the sweet spot. -3 is probably where you want to peak because you don't want to go to 0. If you go to 0, what happens is it cuts off the audio file, because in the digital world, you can't go above 0. It's not like the analog world where you have the nice tape saturation. So let me just practice by resetting this little thing and getting my thing. So I'm about -3. Let's see where we're at right here. Hello, hello, hello. Wow, I'm really on top of this thing. Hello. Now it's ASMR. Okay, so let's do this. Hey, I'm George, and this is my recording with much better gain. Now let's listen to that back and see, do we have a better sound? Hey, I'm George, and this is my recording with much better gain. Can't even hear the hiss in the background. So this is why you don't want your gain structure to be too low, particularly in microphones, but this also can work with guitars and anything like that, especially if you're miking a guitar amp. If you don't have enough gain, you're going to end up adding noise floor, which is not what you want. Always look for that healthy audio file, and this is where you want to be. Number 2, you're killing your mix because your gain structure is far too hot. Let's take a look. Okay, back in Logic now, we're going to add a guitar, and we're going to see what happens when you have far too much gain and what happens to the audio file. So let me get a guitar. So I'm going to pull up this guitar on track 7, and right now I'm going into a mic pre, but you might be going into an audio interface like a Scarlett or something like that, and that is your first line of defense on your gain structure. Now, my mic pre has a gain knob as something like a Scarlett does, and so what we want to do is see what is our gain going into the DAW. So let me go ahead and turn on the input monitoring and just... All right, so you can see I peaked at -2.4, which is actually ideal. That's exactly the way I want my gain structure to be. And if I were to record in this, let's see what that looks like as a WAV file. Okay, nice healthy wave file. You can see when I'm striking the strings, that's where it's really peaking in that waveform. But it's good. I feel really nice about that. Even though I went to minus 1.2, that's getting real close, but I am not peaking. And it's really just these little areas of my attack that are getting that way. So when you zoom into a file like this, even on the hotspots, this is our hottest spot. And we zoom in, let's get right over the hotspot when it gets really tight. See, that's nice. I'm not hitting 0 here, which in the case of Logic, what you're seeing here, it says 100. So 100 is 0, but I digress. What's happening is I'm not hitting any sort of walls, even in my loudest moment right here. It's still got the ability to make its waveform. Let's see what happens when we push the gain way too loud and what happens to our audio file in the digital world. I'm going to crank up my gain just to make it ridiculously abundantly clear on why you don't want to do this. Okay, I've made my gain preposterous. And just to verify that, if I look at my thing here, I'm definitely hitting 0, which means I'm hitting over 0. So let's go ahead and record it and see what that audio file looks like. Now you can already see just by the way I was inputting this that it's ridiculous. If I go into that audio file, you can see this is totally a wall of audio here. I'm going to expand this a bit. And now you can see what happens to your audio when it's too hot. First of all, it is just flattening when you hit digital 0. So all of that gain structure that could be dynamic is now flatline, which is going to cause glitching, it's going to cause aliasing, it's going to cause distortion. It's not good. You never want to be in that spot. So this is why you never want your gain to be so loud that you're blowing up your audio, especially in the digital world. So again, to set our proper gain structure, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to go back down on my preamp and get it to -3, hopefully. Let's see what happens. Okay, now we're back at hopefully -3. Let's see. I'm going to reset this by clicking on it and see where we end up. So we're at -1.4. I could still go down a hair because really I don't want to have the danger of me possibly going to 0. I'd rather be like between -6 and -3. Okay, -3.1. Perfect. That is setting up your gain structure right so you avoid aliasing, any sort of glitching, any sort of distortion, and you're going to have a nice level to mix with. Okay, number 3, you might be killing your mix because your gain structure on your plugins is too loud. Let's take a look. Okay, back in Logic, we have a promo that I wrote for something recently, and I'm just going to play a little bit of it, and I'm going to take a look at these little dots here because if it's green, it's good. If it's orange, it's not good. Let's see what happens. Okay, so immediately I see that the synth bass here has got an issue. And if I click on this track and I say, hey, look, this is going 2.2 decibels above 0. Not good, but my fader is at 1.3 minus. So what is going on here? I'm going to go look at this plugin and see what is going on here. So I'm going to look at my little LED readout in the plugin and just play it and see what happens. Yeah, so in the LED readout, you can see I'm peaking in the plugin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my volume down so I am no longer peaking in the plugin. See how that goes. Okay, and you can see now I'm at -1.3. I'm actually perfect of where I should be. And I think what happens is we don't realize that audio plugins actually have their own audio engines in them. And so if you're going to peak in that plugin itself, what happens is you can distort inside the plugin before you even get to the track. So these software instruments have that kind of thing going on. We have to monitor our software instruments to make sure that we are not peaking in the software instrument before we even get to the track level. That simple adjustment is going to fix this from distorting before it even gets to the track. So now let's take a look. Okay, it's just at 0, so I can even go down a little hair more. The good news is I know I've identified the problem, and it is I have too much gain going in the plugin itself. So the other thing to consider is not just software instruments, it's also plugins like compressors, EQ, those kind of things that could be an issue. I noticed that the toms went off in this particular spot here. So this tom is continually going overboard. So if you notice, my channel here is at minus 5.3 dB, but yet I am peaking at 3.6 above zero. Not good. So my first thing is like, hey, let's go into the contact instrument and see if that's the problem. So let me dial this up fast. Okay, my gain structure inside contact looks pretty good, so I don't really want to mess with that. But what I see on the rest of my channel is a EQ, a compressor, and a sample delay to give it some widening effect. So if I look at my EQ, you can see I'm +7 here. That's going to add gain, especially at that high end. That could be the culprit. Let's take a look at my compressor. Unfortunately, the EQ is not going to give me some sort of LED readout, so I can see where my gain structure has gone wrong. But we certainly have one for this compressor. Let's take a look at that section again. Oh yeah. Yeah, so my input gain is perfect. I mean, it's like way below what it needs to be. But did you see what happened over here on the output gain? Plus 10 dB. So what I need to do is the input to this plugin is fine, but it's this makeup gain that needs to come down. I'm going to bring it down about 10 dB because that's what I'm hitting. Let's see what happens now. Perfect. I am safe. I'm in the safe zone. And hey, just because I turned that level down, I need to look at it on the track level. Let's make sure that we're still not peaking. So let me just reset this. Perfect. And the thing is, if I want, because I took 10 dB out of the plugin, if I want to goose up the fader to gain some of that volume back, I can still do that. Great. That is the loudest point of the toms in this piece, and is peaking at minus 0.3. I think the idea is that's pretty close, so I might bring it down a little bit. But the idea is that is how you set up your gain structure in your plugins, whether they're software instruments or whether they're effects. Got to look down the whole line and say, hey, who is blowing up here? And adjust that, because you only are adding distortion if you don't adjust that, and it's going to make your mix sound bad. So number 4 is you're killing your mix because your gain structure on your tracks is above zero, therefore distorting. Let's take a look. Okay, so I picked this Shark promo up here, but I noticed that the tracks are peaking by showing those little orange lights light up. So let's see what we got going on here. Okay, specifically in the beginning, I've got this. So let's take a look at this first thing. Let's take a look at our channel and see what's happening here. I can see my channel fader is 1.2 dB above unity, and I am having a 3.6 dB peak over zero, which leads me to believe it might be the soft synth or it might be the EQ. Let's take a look. Okay, we do red line in there, so I could just take this down a twinge. Okay, we're good there, but we're still 1.5, so let's see what's happening on the EQ level. Oh boy, I have gone 14 decibels above on this giant shelf here. So in the EQ, one way you can combat that, you can still have these drastic EQ curves if that's improving the sound, but just take the gain down. Yeah, there we go, and now let's see what happens. All right, minus 4.1. Now, if I were just to take this fader to 0, I can even adjust it on the fly here. Okay, so I'm down 5.6. Let's just bring it up a twinge. By the way, I don't know if twinge is a word, but I'm using it. So this works. I am not hitting 0, therefore I'm not distorting. Let's see what else is happening here. Okay, this clearly is a problem here. So what is this? Oh, it's Serum. Serum is notorious for giving you super loud patches. So let's see what's happening here. Okay, I'm at unity on my fader, which means Serum is definitely 1.4 decibels too loud. Let's see what's happening. Yes, you can see it red line, so we can just take it down a bit. There we go. Now we're safe. Now in this case, it wasn't the tracks necessarily, but it could be the tracks. Sometimes we're just pushing things up on the tracks because we want more, we're at like +6, like I need more gain. And the thing is, you are distorting. So anytime you see that little orange thing on your tracks, you know that it's either a soft synth or a audio plugin, or perhaps it's just you just being a little fader happy and it's pushing your mixes into distortion. So once we have everything just riding right underneath the 0, now we're getting that sweet spot. We're having enough gain, but we're not pushing it and distorting it. Which brings me to the final thing in your gain structure that might be killing your mix, and that is how you're dealing with your stereo out. Let's take a look. All right, so we're back at the hard promo here, and it's important to point out that I'm using the tab mixing method, and that is tracks, auxiliaries, buses, and stereo out. And gain structure has to be correct for all of those to really get everything to gel perfectly. And so it's important. We've already kind of covered your input, we've covered the plugins, we've covered the tracks, but now we're looking at the buses and now at the stereo out. And the stereo out is where we have our mastering chain. So that's kind of the final frontier of your mix. Okay, so at this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my tracks, and all of them are getting dumped into buses. Now, if I've already checked all my tracks and plugins and know that nothing is redlining, nothing is going over 0, I'm good to go. Buses in the tabs format really are going to start at -12, because if you had everything at 0, your stereo out would be like +15, because you're collecting everything in another area. So you can notice that all my buses here are -12 or below, maybe a couple are above, but I'm using my buses to mix this. And those also have effects on it, so you have to pay attention to everything. Make sure we're not redlining here. So if I run the mix, I'm looking at my stereo out. Now you can see I have a kind of a complex mastering chain here, but I want to take that mastering chain off. So I'm going to remove all the plugins here, and I'm also going to disable any sort of automation here. So what I want to do with my mastering chain disengaged, I want to see where I'm ending up on my stereo out. Okay, I'm pretty close to 0 here, so I'm kind of in the danger zone, and I haven't even added the compressor and the EQ that I'm going to put on the mastering chain. I'm already feeling like I'm a little bit hot here, and I'm going to go to where the turnaround is. Ruh-roh. I'm over 0. Now this whole mix needs to come down. Where does it come down? I'm not doing it on the track level because I already have my tracks situated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collect all my buses by selecting them all. And I do have a little kick drum over here going on the side chain. I'm going to go ahead and try to get my mix to -3 before I put on the mastering chain. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down a bit, and that's going to bring everybody down. And let's see where we stand now. Let's reset this by clicking on it. Literally perfect. The -3 gain is perfect. And now I can add my mastering chain and see where I end up then. So I'm going to just pick one of my static mastering chains. Let's see where we're at here. Now on my mastering chain, I have a compressor, I have EQ, and the most important thing is I have a limiter. The limiter is designed to limit at -0.1 dB. So it'll never go to 0. That's exactly what you want. But when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're not redlining our mix either. Let's just see where this stands as is. Okay, so you notice when I started that off, this is pinned. That's too much gain. I don't really like it when it's always pinned red, red, red. So I like a little movement there. I mean, I don't mind it hitting red because I know it's going to be at -0.1, which you can see my limiter is doing its job because it says -0.1 here. But I want to see a little bit more movement. Now I could bring my buses again down more, but I'm not going to do that because I want to make sure I'm not peaking in the plugins. Okay, I am hitting this pretty hard, so I can change my gain. There's optical gain and there's discrete gain. I could just take these down a bit. Okay, that's better. I could probably go down further, but I'm going to actually take a look and see what's happening in the EQ as well. Okay, my meters are good here, and then I'm going to take a look at my limiter. But really what I'm going to look at and I'm going to listen to is, can I hear any distortion? Does it sound woofy? Does it sound bloated? Does it sound like it's overdriven? I don't want that in my mix. So right now, if I take a look at this, The other thing is I want to make sure there's movement here, that it's not just red, 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 red. Now I'm pretty comfortable with what I just saw there, so I'm going to go ahead and bounce this and I'm going to call it good. But a lot of times what people do is they take their output and they go above 0. You never ever want to go above 0. In fact, you always want to limit your stereo out, because then you can ensure you're not cutting off your files like I showed you in point 2 of this and adding unnecessary distortion to your mixes. So hopefully you can see that this could be killing your mix because you're adding all sorts of levels of distortions, whether it's on the plugin level or the track level or the mastering level, or you might be pushing up something that doesn't have enough gain and adding hiss. And if you have your proper gain structure, everything should be in that sweet spot and it's not distorting, and it should make it sound really nice. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you disagree or think I missed something, please let me know in your comments, and make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon to be notified for future videos. Until next time, I'm George Gabriel. This is George Gabriel Music.